Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 13th, 2026 Agenda Meeting of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. My name is Katie Sieben, and I chair the commission. I'll take the role now of the other commissioners who are here. Commissioner Partridge.
Here.
Commissioner Hom.
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Here.
And Commissioner Tuma.
Here.
A quorum is present. We have 3 agenda items today. Commissioner Partridge, did you want to comment on the first agenda item?
Yes, thank you, Chair Sieben. I will be recusing myself from item number 1 because I was a participant long ago in this docket before I came to the commission.
I don't know. Can we have a vote on that? Because I don't think you were involved in the rule as when you could come on 12 months. Were you? Was that your idea?
I was not, but
oh, I don't know.
We're
going to let you out of this. I guess it's your call.
Let's go to Dr. Dornfeld. Will you please introduce the item?
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners, and good morning. Item number 1 before the Commission is docket number E002/M-23-524 in the matter of the petition of Xcel Energy for approval of a residential time of use rate design. So the 2 issues before the Commission this morning are: what action should the Commission take on Xcel Energy's first compliance with the Commission's February 23rd, 2026 order concerning enrollment in the electric space heating rate? And issue number 2, Xcel Energy's March 25th, 2026 proposed modification to tariff language. There were 4 public comments filed after the close of the comment period. Those were sent to commissioners, as well as a few printed copies are available up front. There are no opening statements, but commenters and staff are available if needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If the parties could come forward for appearances, we'll begin with questions from commissioners. Good morning. Ms. Steinhauser, please introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning. Lauren Steinhauser on behalf of the company.
Good morning. Olivia Carroll on behalf of the Citizens Utility Board of Minnesota.
Sydney Lieb for the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Who would like to begin with questions? Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. So question to Xcel. So this auto enrollment qualification and gatekeeping issue. So when you initially proposed that only that who took rebates will be qualified because of gatekeeping issue. In that case, if I don't file rebates, I am not qualified to be auto enrolled in that case. If initial owner of the house installed the heat pump, got the rebate, qualified, or auto enrolled, that person left the house, new person came in, what happened to that person?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Hom. The microphones are very loud now. This is great. I'm going to see if we have someone in the room who can deal with that specific hypothetical. My expectation would be that the rate remains, but
I have an answer for you in that case. If you associate that information with the meter rather than account, that account can be qualified over and over again, right?
Commissioner Hom, that's correct.
Okay, in that case, concern raised by the CUB that existing electric board heating customer, if they already qualified, right? Because they already taking that space heating rates. So as long as they, at least one, that residential customer in that meter took that service, you automatically flag that that meter is qualified to be auto enrolled.
Commissioner Hom, that's correct.
So in that case, your gatekeeping is not prohibiting existing customer as long as that meter is at least qualified once for the space heating.
Commissioner Hahn, that's correct. If they are already on the rate, they will continue to be on that rate. Our gatekeeping concern is for new enrollments and making sure that they're eligible.
Do you see any new customer, brand new, totally brand new meter using this electric board heating?
Board heating specifically, I think I'll need some help. We have had nearly 4,000 enrollments in the last year since October onto the rate. Board heating? Yeah. I don't think that we have the specific, like whether or not those are entirely heat pump applicants or others, but our materials and how we're training up everyone on our side is if you have board heating, that qualifies. So those customers can be calling in or contacting us to enroll on the rate. There's no block to them participating.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding, due to the economics, I think if somebody is building new building, I don't think they're going to install this electric board heating. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'll ask a COB about it. Their concern is legitimate, but I think maybe there is some concern with whether this qualification is associated with the account versus a meter. So now you answer about the meter. So I don't think this will be a huge issue as we discuss in this back and forth in your comments. Can I ask a COB? Yeah. So based on this discussion, do you still have a concern because maybe not all, but most of the typical customer you had a concern with already qualified on this. So new customer comes in same meter building, they will be automatically allowed to do auto enrollment under this discussion.
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Hom. Yeah, so I guess just to clarify, our concern is not necessarily that customers with baseboard heating would not be able to get on at all. They could always call the company. We had just observed that there were concerns with some difficulty in making that call, and if the company is already rolling out an online enrollment platform for their time of use rate, the conversation I think we had at the last hearing was that the company should also include that option for electric space heating. So all eligible customers would be able to access that. And that would just be more of a way to streamline enrollment rather than necessarily, fully excluding customers from the ability to participate. I think to your point about new construction, we aren't necessarily anticipating a ton of new construction with baseboard heating, as you've said, but it's not clear to us, and I'm not sure if Xcel does have the data or not on, if there are existing customers who were never enrolled in the electric space heating rate that could be eligible. We are still concerned that is a potential.
Yeah, those are the only remaining your concern, and to me, I think that can be very marginal and very small. And the downside of the gatekeeping potential, I think we have to weigh between potential downside of those few customers, very limited, versus a gatekeeping issue with that we don't want to open this to whole self-attestation. So I think that's why Xcel is trying to go with this gatekeeping. To me, that's reasonable given that a lot of customers you're already concerned with has a qualification under this system.
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Hom, I think that's an area that reasonable minds could differ on. I think we just still don't know, the assumption that all of the customers that are eligible have already been enrolled in it. So that's the only.
Yeah, given the economics, I think these non-summer rates are very, very attractive for the particularly who's heavily using electricity during the winter time for heating. And do you think you have a significant number of people not enrolled in these rates?
Ms. Carroll.
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Hom, I think we just don't know if those customers are unaware of the rate or have struggled to call and sign up for the rate or something like that.
Yeah, I think if that's the measurable significant number, I think we are doing something wrong. I think we have to make sure that those customers are enrolled in at least in the space heating rates at the minimum. even though they don't need to opt into the TOU. But I think that's a very different issue. I think we may need to talk with other agency who's looking after these low-income folks. They should go very active in enrolling those people in the space heating rates. It's not about this auto-enrolling in the TOU rate problem. That's more fundamental problem we have. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. I guess my question was for the company regarding its concern that somebody would come in and out of the rate, and it just feels to me like it'd be very unlikely that somebody would game this. I also think that, I mean, the concern that I would have that somebody would game it is if somebody was on gas and that they would try to kind of get over onto the electric system, pretend like they're on electric heat, and then get a nice little, reduction for their entire usage. But it feels to me like you have the the technological systems in place. You have smart meters. You can assess and you can look at whether or not that would be true. So I guess I'm concerned on what is the company worried about with a gaming of the rate if it's not that?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Sullivan, thank you for the question. One clarifying point is that the tariff modification language is actually applicable to the entire TOU rate. That was not a specific issue to the space heating rate. So the concern is that someone would opt into the TOU rate in the winter and then opt out in the summer to avoid the summer peak on-peak cost and then flip back and forth. So it's not about the space heating rate, it's about the TOU rate itself and trying to get allowing those customers the flexibility to try it out and see if it works for them and fall back off, but then also protecting kind of the price signals that it is meant to convey.
So, okay, I was thinking that it was just regarding the electric portion of the rate. So what you're concerned about, the tariff language is the entire TOU, not just the electric component.
That's correct, yeah.
I need to think that through because that.
Oh, that lines.
Commissioner Toomer.
That's why at first I thought it was related to this heat pump discount, okay, that you've plugged into 3 different rate categories. That's the standard rate. There's the time of day and time of use. So there's 3 different existing tariffs that you've plugged into this special winter months. You only pay 0.06 as opposed to even the best rate for the TOU or the time of date rate that's low below it. And so there's some big advantage if you're in that. And so that was the gaming, is just in the TOU rate where we have the three levels, peak, medium peak, and off peak. Time of day is just 2, peak and off peak, and then the regular is we all play a standard rate. Summer and winter, all of us are paying the same rate no matter what, okay? And so what you're concerned about with, I think it's the A72, A74 tariff, was that tariff alone. And that tariff alone has some advantages, I guess. I can't quite imagine how someone would try to manipulate it so much. But the difference here is really how you treat the people, because you already have a limitation on them right now, is they can opt out, but then they have to stay off for 12 months, right?
That's correct.
And that's, I had it last night when I was reading it and torturing myself, is that I am on the TOU rate. I'm a TOU customer who has a 3-level thing. And if I choose to opt out, I have to wait 12 months before I can opt back into the TOU rate. That's the existing way it is written, right?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, that's correct.
And now what you're going to give this person who is now on the TOU rate, okay, whether they participate in the gas or I should say the heat pump rebate, these persons will now have an option. If they can opt out, they can opt back in at any time within a year, okay? But once you opt them back in, you want them to commit to that tariff for 12 months, okay? And that's the new language I think you and the department have kind of figured out, worked with, is that you're free to opt out at any time and opt back in at any time. But once you opt back in as a TOU customer, you're locked in for 12 months, whether you are doing the heat pump rebate or not. Is that right?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, the one nuance I would add there is if there have been 12 months since you last opted out, that
was the
limitation,
additional language.
Right, that limitation doesn't apply because we do understand that customers are going to be trying to figure out whether or not this works for them, and that length of time doesn't. We wanted to get to a place where they would have that flexibility within the context of also not flopping in, going in and out of the rate.
So in some
at a rapid
ways,
pace.
there is more flexibility for these TOU people that have the 3-level. They have a flexibility to jump out, but then they 2 months later, wait a minute, I didn't know about this heat pump thing. I want to jump back in. You can get back in. Now, the concern I guess Cub was having is that locking somebody in for 12 months may be a disincentive for these people who may want to do this to do it. Is that still your concern after the language that the department and the company worked out?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, that was one concern. I think just to clarify that the language that department and Xcel have come to definitely alleviates a lot of the concern we previously had that now has that 12-month sort of reset. But that concern, as well as just the slight preference for, if you're going to lock customers into a rate, the standard one-period rate for 12 months over locking them into the time of use rate just seems to have less volatility and potential for the customer to have, significant disadvantage on that rate. But again, with the new language, we're more comfortable, but those were the two concerns that we had.
Okay, and then at the customer location, I think Commissioner Hom addressed that, but let's just give you the hypothetical. I am the customer. I opt in, and then I opt out, and I want to go back in to TOU. Okay, well, I can do it now, but then I decide to move. You see, people have a hard decision. I wouldn't want to get behind them in a Starbucks line, but they're in and out, in and out. Okay, if I am that person that now I'm locked in for 12 months, okay, and I decide to move in 2 months, is the new owner locked into that rate, or is that they're kind of free to do what they want?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, they are not locked into that rate.
So in some ways, I appreciate what the department did because I think there's a little more flexibility with the way you guys worked it out for that customer who I don't want to get behind on the Starbucks line, opting in, opting out, and then they're locked in. I think at that stage, they've been through the program enough that they should recognize being locked in for 12 months is what they want to do, and I don't think it's going to be as much of a deterrence as I think we were concerned about when we were first reading this. So I'm comfortable with the new language, but that's just kind of, I wanted to make sure the nuances were there.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Stephen. Just one clarification on terminology. So, Xcel Energy program is opt-in program. So we are mixing opt-in, opt-out in this discussion. Opt-out means opt-in is terminated. It's not opt-out, right?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Hom, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just one other question too, and so I just want to understand it, and I was struggling with this. I am automatically enrolled in it if I use the rebate, meaning I still have to contact you, but everything is short-circuited once I look and say, oh, this address, this customer just got a rebate. Boom, you're in, no questions asked. You got a heat pump. We're excited to have you on. You're in. Is that kind of how it would work? Our staff made the phone call, and seemed like it was a very seamless process. Is that kind of what you anticipate?
Chair Stephen, Commissioner Tuma, so for the space heating rate, that is correct, because it's about eligibility of the premises. So that stays with the property.
So if I'm an early adopter, say I early adopted, I bought a heat pump 5 years ago, okay, before the rebate came into place, and I want to get on this space heating rate, what happens in that situation? I have to call you up, I have to know about this, and I have to contact you. And what do I got to do to prove that I have a heat pump and I'm using most primarily as my heat?
Ms. Steinhauser.
Chair Seaman, Commissioner Tuma, I'm going to call up a friend to help with this one.
You've been trying to avoid coming up here, but I'm worried that Ms. Steiner's are going to get a bad neck, and you're going to have a work comp claim when she goes to her chiropractor. So,
Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Swanson. I work for Xcel. Could you repeat the question, please?
yeah, Ms. Swanson, I am an early adopter. I put my heat pump in before the rebate was in, and I want to take advantage of this rate. I find out about it, who knows how, my neighbor told me about it or whatever. What do I have to do? I call you on the phone and say, I have a heat pump, I don't have a rebate. What happens at that stage?
What is intended to happen at that stage, you call up or contact customer service in one of our other channels, and you'll be asked a few different questions of what piece of equipment do you have? When it comes to heat pumps, there's some certain criteria we have to meet, because not every heat pump is used as your primary heating source. And then you're asked to confirm verbally, is this the primary heating source of your home? And if you say yes, you will be put onto the space heating rate.
Okay. And if there's a dispute with that, I suppose I run it up the chain or whatever, give our CAOs a call, and we have a discussion about whether you are in or out on the space heating.
I can't speak to what a customer would do if they were told no.
But what they could do if they're told no is they could run it up the chain, and if they're not getting any communication back, it would come to us, and we would resolve it, hopefully. Okay. So that's the part that I was trying to understand, if the early adopters still could take advantage of this, and that wasn't what was clear to me. You don't have to have a rebate to get into this, but the rebate short circuits everything as far as application.
Correct.
Commissioners, are you ready for deliberations? Commissioner Sullivan, are you going to make a motion?
Yes. My motion will be decision options 1, 2, and 5.
Is there any discussion of his motion? Then we'll do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you.
All in a day's work.
All in a day's work.
Mr. Sulpis, when you're ready, please introduce item 2.
Thank you, Chair. Item 2 is docket number E002/M-23-342 in the matter of Xcel Energy's petition for approval of a development resource acquisition process. The issues before the Commission: should the Commission approve the acquisition of the Boxcar and Little Rock projects, including approval of the related PSAs? Should the Commission determine the projects are eligible for res rider recovery? Should the Commission require Xcel to make a compliance report after the final point of interconnection for Little Rock is chosen? Should the Commission limit cost recovery to a soft cost cap? Should the Commission authorize Xcel to exceed the cost cap if costs incurred were necessary, prudent, and outside of Xcel's control? And should the Commission grant Xcel's requested variance to the requirement of min rules 7825 18 subpart B. Representatives from Xcel and the department are in the room, and I have no further questions, or nothing further to add.
Thank you. Could the parties please come forward for appearances? Mr. Dobson, good morning. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Commissioners Ian Dobson with Xcel Energy.
Good morning, Sydney Lieb with the Minnesota Department of Commerce.
Okay, who would like to begin with questions? Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair Sibley. So for the company, do you have any concern with the decision option 4 as department stated?
No, thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner Hom, we actually would prefer 4 over 5. That was not clear, but we would prefer 4.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is, in this proceeding, that data center by Google is mentioned. I think we have to make it clear that we are not making any decision on that ESA in this docket, right?
Correct, Madam Chair, Commissioner Hom. These resources were needed. They are needed as system resources regardless of whether you approve the Google data center or not. The only connection to the ESA is that when we were developing the pricing, we used some of these resources to help create the pricing for Google. But regardless of whether that's approved, we will need these resources.
Thank you. So this is a system resource that the prior approved Xcel ILP reflecting this need. And then if the data center proceeding is proceed as planned, potentially this project can put the downward pressure on that Xcel ratepayers because a data center will take some attribute is renewable for their own need, and they will pay extra premium for that.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dobson, through the acquisition, and this is along the same lines, like I understand that this is a cost-effective resource for the utility to acquire, and that a portion of the energy derived from it will be attributed to the ESA and to the data center project if that is approved. But I'm having trouble squaring up in my head why the data center should receive the lower cost tax credits that are available under this project, because some of those similar projects that come forward still in this resource plan may not be eligible for the tax benefits. And so wouldn't this be better to attribute these low-cost resources to overall Xcel customers and not necessarily to the data center?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I think a couple things on that. I think first, the decision you're making today would sort of give those resources to our broader customer base. What we do with the SEAC is a decision sorry, I said the SEAC, that's the name of the charge. That what we do with Google and the ESA is the decision you make today. I'm trying to think of how to say this.
SEAC will be included in the ESA.
It would be included in the ESA. So you're not making that decision now of whether to attribute this to Google. What I will say, so I think there'll be a lot of discussion about that down the road. What I would say for now is when we were building I guess 2 points. The first is when we were building the Clean Energy Accelerator charge, we did work, to look at our resources and make sure that of the resources we are putting on the system, Google's not getting the sort of cheapest resources. We did start to attribute some of the higher cost resources to Google to capture the marginal piece of what they're doing.
Where is that marginal piece included? In the SEAC, in the Clean
That-
Energy Accelerator
exactly.
charge?
Exactly.
Or-
That will be, you'll see how we built that, and you'll evaluate how we developed the Clean Energy Accelerator charge when you take up the Google ESA. But for now, the resources that we are putting in are just the benefits of that would be going to our customers. The other, well, now I'm forgetting my second point, but that was the main one. That was the important one. But I think the main piece is that stuff will be addressed in the ESA.
And Dr. Lieb, are you comfortable with his line of questioning and understand that the crux of my argument that the difference between the tax credits that may be available for these projects but not for future ones should be encompassed into the ESA docket that we look at to ensure that the lowest cost system resources are not going to the data center but are going to customers?
Yes, we understand the question. There's going to be a learning curve here. We understand the question, and we agree it needs to be addressed, and that the ESA is the right place to address the costs and allocations.
And Commissioner Hahn.
Thank you, Jesse. But I think that's a great question. Just in case that I prepare potential motion to memorialize this discussion. So can you post a new 7?
I keep wanting to rearrange my flowers while looking at them on camera here, but while we're waiting, but I won't do that. Okay, Commissioner Hahn, can you talk us through what this does?
Yeah, I think that this is what you just discussed with the company and departments, and we just want to memorialize that one to make sure that public understand what we are doing today, and then we are going to make a rate decision in the ESA dockets.
Which, Commissioner Hahn, I understand and agree with everything this says, but what I talked with staff about and what I tried to ask the company and the department about is because presumably with the elimination of the IRA, some of the real beneficial tax credits are going to go away and not be available for future wind projects that are acquired. And so maybe this says this, right?
No, it's not explicitly saying it, but we can develop that record in the ESA. So we are clearly separating this docket to the ESA to make sure the public understand we are trying to effectuate the tariff we approved for the data center in Xcel dockets, and that we are telling everybody we are going to evaluate that ESA in detail of every aspect of what you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Commissioner Tuma?
That's where I was struggling, Mr. Dobson, with number 4, is the term limit cost recovery for the projects. And so that's Boxcar and Little Rock. And along these lines, I was trying to imagine a situation where you do take off to Google, and now we have to find something to replace that 1269 of capacity that we were in our plan to have at this lower price. And what would happen in that situation? And to me, I would want to know that the 26 or the 1269 is what we're capping. Okay. In other words, so if you come back with another proposal for, a new site, Plum Creek or something else, that we're going to get the same deal to get to that 1269. That's the part that I'm struggling with. That because what we have right now is 1269 of capacity that's going to be coming to our system at a rate that is pretty reasonable. All trade secret protected, but looking looking good, and if we can cap it, soft cap it at that, that's what I want to soft cap. And it starts to get commingled with other projects. I understand it gets difficult, but I'm a little worried that capping the projects as opposed to this completion of 1269 that you're bringing to us is what I would like to cap. But I'm struggling with how to say that, and I don't know if Commissioner Ham's language memorializes it enough to say, yes, that's what we intend.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Chair Siebert. So that's why I prepare another one for the modified four in case we had the concern with what we are approving and what we are holding off for the rate case, what we are approving after the routing and citing of it. So it's very complicated language. I didn't pre-file it, so I try to not to do it if it's possible, but if you want to see it, I can show that language.
Let's hear first from them, and
Okay.
then I would like to see it.
So, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I guess the way we are thinking about this, or the way I'm thinking about this, is, in this matter, you're approving these two projects. They obviously add up to 1269 nameplate, like you said, and so as I see it, the decision option 4 is limiting cost recovery to these projects. If for some reason we don't get these projects, or there is some other, I don't foresee that, if that's what we're talking about, and now we're bringing in another project to fill that 1269, I think then we have to evaluate that project on its merits and cap. But I don't, if I'm understanding where you're going here.
Starting is on page 2, back in October 2023, we said we need from your IRP, we need, and I see this fulfilling what we need, okay, at a reasonable price. That's good. So, ka-ching, we're doing good job. We're not PGM, okay. This is the beauty of our system, and you get a bonus because of that, because we're gonna, which we don't normally do, we're gonna essentially give you pre-authorization to go spend this money. You have now regulatory certainty because you're in the plan, and we're saying, yes, Boxcar Willie and Little Rock, Arkansas, you're covered. Don't worry about it, okay? And you can take that to the bank, and your investors and all your people are going to be really, really happy. We like that because now we're accomplishing reliability, low-cost energy, and it's all good. And now in comes, Google and says, I want a piece of that, okay? And I don't want that to be lost to Google because I gave you authorization, to go do this, and we're giving you a special benefit because of that. I want to have that special benefit for that 1,200 megawatts that we needed. That's the line that I'm connecting. You can tell me if it's not connected, but I thought that's what you're coming here for.
Okay, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I think now I see what you're saying. I guess I think of it a little differently because I think the way we are looking at it is you are approving these projects and the cost recovery of these projects subject to the soft cap. In a separate docket, and these resources are needed for our system regardless of Google. In a separate docket, you will consider the Google ESA, which has a cost adder that we have built, that we used some of these projects, the more expensive versions of these projects, to build. And I think the question then is, for you guys that you will be considering is, did we build that in a way, did we create that adder, did we use the right projects, did we consider the right types of resources to account for, to make sure that Google is paying its costs? But it's not a direct, Google's like buying into this project. It's still a system resource. And so I think it's a little different way of thinking about it, but I think that's how we're separating it to sort of put these in two buckets.
So that's why you're saying, don't be concerned, Commissioner Tuma. This will be addressed in the ESA docket.
Right.
And we're not going to let this, go to waste.
Right.
Because that's, to me, the big thing here is good deal, like the projects, makes sense. We got some challenges I'll ask you about on the one by one in a second, but nonetheless, these deals as they sit here now are a good deal, and we're going to protect the ratepayers from that, and Google's going to pay anything up and above. Adder, as you put it, is going to be a big deal as we look at the ESA, and so wait for the ESA.
That's exactly what I'm saying, yeah.
I just want you to say again, though, Mr. Dobson, that not like a collection of some low cost and some higher cost projects are going to be all decided in the ESA. The ESA should include, in my estimation, the highest level project costs that the commission should consider, given that when we approved the IRP, like, this was not conceptualized for this particular project. And that needs to be like, I get that we can make those decisions and do that analysis in the ESA, but it's just like a little bit concerning about whether there's going to be full transparency to be able for us to consider that, given that it's already sort of like tagged here as a Google project. So I think it needs to be like it will be more explicit, I think, in the ESA and through the Clean Energy Accelerator charge, but it's incumbent on the utility to essentially like show your work about how the most expensive projects are being covered or will be attributed to the data center development, so that we can help explain to the public like how this is playing out so that we're doing our best to protect ratepayers and attributing the lowest cost projects. Obviously, they're system resources, but that there is that real clear distinction that the highest cost projects are going to the data center within your overall portfolio that we're looking at.
Sure. I think I appreciate that feedback, Madam Chair, and I think, I'm not steeped into the intricacies of how we built it, but I think I can take your point, and I think there was a recent extension of comment period. I think we did show our work in that docket, as you said, but what I'll definitely do is we'll go back and kind of relook at that and make sure that, if there's any question of the transparency on that we fix that in the comment period that we have.
And and I haven't looked at that docket
I wouldn't
extensively
expect
either,
that, right.
but and that the tax credits, if new projects coming online aren't going to hit those tax credit deadlines under the IRA, that those projects are going to be more expensive, obviously, and again, should be attributable to the data center and not to, and that should be clear in the ESA too.
Sure. Okay. We will take another look at that before you get that in front of you.
Another question I had is about the discussion in here about the permits that I understand will come in another proceeding in front of the commission, but there was mention of how some of them could be a little closer together than is normal in the state compared to other wind projects that we've seen. And again, I understand it will come up in the siting docket and we can talk about it, but what else do you think was related to the cost recovery or the soft cap language regarding the placement of the turbines that you'd like to articulate.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think that's obviously the big one that we were referring to in the permitting matter, because obviously if you can place them closer together, then that reduces space, landowner cost, development. Access roads can be shorter, things like that. I guess the only there's sort of a variety of things that could cause cost to change outside of our control, but that's sort of one. The other one is when we get into the potential interconnection at Aden. We don't have those interconnection costs yet, so we've estimated those, but that's the other one. But I think those are the two big categories that we see as potentially changing the big picture costs of these projects.
And to be clear, I haven't looked at the site permit
Sure.
layout,
We
but
haven't filed
I
it,
am supportive and think it is advantageous for ratepayers to, where it makes
Yep.
sense, put turbines closer together to help control costs. So
Right.
I'm supportive of that, but I just wanted to be clear that that's sort of where you were headed around your soft cap language related to that. And
That's the main issue with that sort of last sentence in 4 is referring to that permitting issue.
And Dr. Lieb, EIP is now housed at the commission, but you're comfortable with that understanding and the decisions made around turbine placement could be subject to different cost caps. You're comfortable with the way that company has presented it?
Chair Sieben, we're comfortable with the way it's been presented, with the caveat that I don't have the permitting team here, and I don't want to speak for them on the details, but we'll make sure that we review it.
Okay.
Along that
Commissioner
lines, Mr. Dobson, and I'm comfortable with one by one. It's not about whether turbines are going to be closer together. You're going to put them closer together. We allow you to put them closer together so long as you have wind rights from the landowners, and so that's already happening. What the one by one is about is I have someone who bought 5 acres of the old farm place, and the farmer kept the field around it, and now I have theoretically a wind right over my 5 acres. And if I could just put a turbine somewhat closer to that, as opposed to 3 by 5, I can now stack more turbines in that area. And so, what I'm concerned about is the rights of that, landowner who has the 5 acres, and it's not really. We've kind of created this property right, which is really not a property right. This wind right thing is all in rule. It's not even rule. It's just a standard we have adopted. So I'm okay with modifying it, but I think it is within your control to work with landowners and community to mitigate damages like flicker and sound and all those things. And so I guess I just want to hear from you as we go through with this. You understand it is within your control to develop community plans with those neighbors, particularly those folks that live out in the rural landscape, to try to mitigate it. It could be screening, it could be lots of things. And if I'm going to 3 by 5 allowed us to avoid a lot of that, but I'm hoping you're already in the thought of this permit building in that maybe I'm going to have to do a little bit more mitigation work with those residential properties, and so that's in your control, right?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, yes, that's in our control, and I have no illusions that simply getting a permit using a standard is sort of the end of it. We have to go out into the community and work with the actual landowners. That is, of course, a part of it, and we will do that through the permitting process.
And I'm hoping that the prices you're laying out for us for Boxcar and Little Rock, knowing that you're going to seek a one by one, is taking into account maybe some additional costs that we have to cover to work with landowners that are going to be affected. I'm hoping that's the way you're looking at this.
If I'm understanding, Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, yes. I think we are taking into account in this project, we are taking it, in this cost that we proposed, we are taking into account using these new standards for permitting and everything that goes into it, including recognizing that there are landowner issues that we would have to deal with in any permit.
Probably more landowner issues, and so
Possibly.
that's going to probably be the case. I'm interested because you didn't use the big 5, megawatt ones. They're not the ones that you've proposed here, so that does take away some of the flicker concerns. We're dealing with the machines we're kind of familiar with. They were, I guess I would call them the backbone machines. They're hardworking machines that we've used for years, and so there's not those new concerns about, towers that are up in the stratosphere, and we got to get Elon Musk to give us a permit to build them. These are the ones we've dealt with for years, and so it's not something that should be as unusual maybe as some of the 5 megawatt ones that we've been seeing in the past or in recent history. So I'm hopeful that it shouldn't be as difficult as others might have been with a 1x1. So I think it's going to be workable. So I'm not as panicky about it, but I just wanted to hear you are taking into account that there's going to be some additional mitigations probably we're going to have to do, even though these are the standard machines we've been working for years. So I appreciate that.
Commissioner Sullivan.
I'm not going to pick the scab. I'll pass. I just wanted to say, so I'm going to pick the scab. I feel like there are probably going to be less landowner concerns if there's less land occupied. So but you can argue with me and tell me I'm wrong.
Well, I don't think you're wrong. We don't know until we get it. But there's going to be with a 1x1, you're going to have towers that are closer to some of those residential people. We've seen them. They come in front of us all the time. And so there could be more of them. We don't know until we see the permit and we see the location. But obviously, it's going to be a tighter fit because they're asking for 1x1 here, and that makes good sense. I'm okay with that, but we also have to anticipate that if there's more of those individuals who want to have mitigations, it's something we're going to have to consider. We won't know until we get the permit.
Any other questions or discussions on this? Then, Commissioner Hom, do you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Chair Sieben. So I can make a motion to move decision option 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and new 7.
Commissioners, do you want to see or
I don't need to see new 7. We had
you need your mic on?
My mic on. We had a conversation. I just want to make sure, Commissioner Hom, you're comfortable with, the concern we've been all talking about is this is to fulfill the 1200 IRP language. You're feeling confident with the language you have here. You talked about some other language. I'm feeling comfortable, but I want to make sure you're feeling comfortable as making the motion, and you understand these things better than I do. So I just want to make sure your comfort level is where it is so that we understanding this 1200 is meant for our ratepayers and our IRP that we had developed.
Yeah, I think it's very clear during the discussion that companies claim that it's a system resource. So I think that's over. And then the new 7 is, even in my view, it's redundant. That's why I didn't pre-file it. But also, if it makes commissioners comfortable and then public to understand what we are doing, and then that helps. Another language I was preparing was, in case there's a dispute about soft cap, I have a very prescriptive what it can be claimed or not. But I think usually we don't do that. That's why I didn't introduce it either. And at this point, I don't think we need to introduce it.
So in other words, your soft cap language was going to say the sky is blue. This is what we've done in the past, and we expect you to do it again, is what I'm hearing from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think giving more generic language is better. So I think the department can making sure that companies are accountable.
Gives us flexibility then to dive in and say, wait, we didn't anticipate this cost, that cost.
Yeah.
Okay, so commissioners are clear on Commissioner Hom's motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. Thank you.
We want to get in the jet stream. Well, Elon Musk will probably hang him from his. Yeah, he's even talking about doing data centers in outer space. It's like, God, really?
Mr. Panay, good morning. When you're ready, please introduce item number 3.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Item 3 on today's agenda is docket PL 7108/GP-23-43. It is in the matter of the application of Heartland Corn Products for a route permit for the Heartland Corn Natural Gas Pipeline project in Sibley County. And the question before you today is what action should the Commission take concerning the Heartland Corn Products Natural Gas Pipeline construction completion certification filed pursuant to Minnesota Rule 7852.3900. There was a recent new decision option filed in the docket by Commissioner Tuma. Has been e-filed. You all have it, and I have extra copies here. And company representatives are here. We invited Mr. Malheim, but have not received the confirmation whether he's attending or not.
I don't see him online, but Mr. Malheim, if you're here, you're welcome to come forward. Otherwise, thank you, Mr. Panay and Ms. Ness. Why don't we start with appearances from the applicant?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Mike Ravel with Winthrop and Weinstein on behalf of the permittee here, Heartland Corn Products.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Tom Patrick, the CEO at Heartland Corn Products.
Good morning. Why don't we begin with Commissioner questions, and Commissioner Tuma, if you could just begin, or you want to talk about your decision option, whatever.
Well, Mr. Ravel, I assume you saw it. We've kind of gone around a little discussion. You know, my decision option presumes they're kind of rejecting the filing and then approving it after the emergency plan is with us. But we could also vary the rule too about the timing, because we need to do this in a certain amount of time. And I'm comfortable with either approach. I didn't put variance in mind, but we could do it that way too. Because I don't feel like I'm really rejecting it. It was just one filing that was missed, and we should have it in the record. So where are you as far as how we should handle it, where we sit today?
Mr. Ravel.
Chair Siebman, Commissioner Tuma. First, thank you for catching this and pointing it out. I just want to be clear. There is an emergency response plan that is in operation with Hutchinson Utilities Commission that operates this pipeline, and we intend to file it very promptly. So we'll resolve that. I think maybe I could use a little bit of help understanding your question. So the way that I read your decision option 3 is that basically the construction completion certification would sit until the filing is made, and then if no objection is received, it would be approved.
Right.
I believe we are comfortable with that path.
Yeah. And again, we have a timeline. We just want to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's, so that you're fine with that. You're not going to object that we didn't do it in time, and so you're just comfortable with just doing 3 as is, and we'll go from there. And I think that was one of the conversations we had, because we do have a rule that says we need to do these in a certain amount of time, and you're essentially waiving that.
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, I appreciate you highlighting that. We would have no issue with that.
And then, I saw the individual, and I always want to do my due diligence, and so that's what got me to where his emergency plan. He must have read something that you folks said to him. I don't know what it was, about some zone or corridor, and knowing our English property rights that we are under, I mean, I can't imagine what it would be in an emergency plan that would make him think he has some sort of property right there. I mean, we have the right to cross properties in emergency if we do damage. I mean, if you guys cross a property to put out a fire in his neighbor's property, you would do damage to his property, you would reimburse that, right? I mean, that's yes, and they're nodding their heads yes. And so, I mean, that's my understanding of the way the property rights work. And if he got in your way trying to save the neighbor and say, you cannot cross my property, it's trespass, he would probably be arrested for, interfering with an emergency situation. So, I mean, I don't know what property right he is envisioning that he has, but if I understand it, and I just want to reconfirm that it's in the record, you guys did not cross his property, you did not damage any of his property, you stayed within the right-of-way, and as far as this permit is concerned, whether he thinks he has a property right under some emergency plan someplace that we haven't seen yet, but we will get to see, you will deal with that in some other venue. You have done everything you can as far as this permit to avoid getting on this individual's property. Is that my understanding?
Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, that is correct. I'll let you hear from Mr. Patrick as well.
Sure.
Chairman Sieben, Commissioner, that's absolutely correct. We've done everything in accordance with the plans and permits that were filed. We have not been on the complainant's property.
And everybody else along the route has said everything is fine. We've received no complaints, and they've been notified appropriately. I see that in the record. You don't need to respond to it. It's in the record that we're doing that. And so I'm very comfortable. I just cannot imagine in my mind's where somehow there would be a right here. But I think the important thing, and I told this to Mr. Penne, that when we do get the emergency plan, he should contact Winthrop and make sure Winthrop is okay with this plan that we received and that it's in the file. That's the important thing. That's why we put that in the permit, is I want to make sure emergency services knows about these pipelines, because we've seen under line 3 where we had Kalamazoo, Michigan, where people were driving around, they were smelling gas, and you had emergency service guys driving around going, wonder why it smells like gas. The worst thing I want to have is, like, we're driving around, I'm a law enforcement or I'm the fire chief, and I smell eggs, rotten eggs. Okay, what's going on? Well, we want to know that they were informed there's a pipeline there and there's a plan when they smell rotten eggs to call you up and turn the doggone thing off so it doesn't blow up and blow up anybody's houses in Winthrop. And that's the critical part. So I'm assuming you've been working with the fire chiefs and everybody, and they're fully aware of what's going on.
Yes. Chair Sieben, Commissioner Tuma, absolutely. There's been more than annual interaction with first responders in Winthrop. They're aware of the plan. And so at this point.
Why didn't they have the plan then, Mr. Ravel?
I think they had the plan. We just don't have the plan.
Oh, is that what happened?
Chair Sieben, correct. Yes, it was not. We didn't file it in the docket. So the plan is in operation, and it's been shared with the city of Winthrop. It's just not filed on the docket.
And the city wasn't objecting that they didn't have the emergency plan. It's just that you forgot to file it with us.
Correct, Chair Sieben.
A copy of it. Okay.
Yep. So we're just doing our due diligence, Madam Chair. I am very comfortable with the decision options in front of us, decision option 3, and letting the executive secretary fill it out. But I'm happy to also vary the rule too, if that's what you want to do.
Commissioner Hom.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair Sieben. I think we have to admit that we failed to act within 60 days. Under the rule, we have to act, and we failed to do that. I think we have to admit that. I think that's first thing. Second thing, to carry out the decision option 3 as proposed by Commissioner Tuma, we are evading the rule again. So I was advised that under the statute, we can do that through the executive secretary, but I want to make sure that we are closing any potential gap, if there is any gap. So that's why I'm proposing to vary the rule to make sure that we are covering every end of it. So can you put, yep.
And Madam Chair, I think that's fine. Again, I feel this is dotting the I's and crossing the T's, or as I like to say, dotting the T's and crossing the I's.
So has the plan with the emergency plan that Winthrop already has it now been filed into this docket too? And if not, why not?
No, Madam Chair. We just became aware yesterday or the day before, and so we filed shortly.
When
I think
you read the briefing papers, or you didn't?
No, the briefing paper isn't covered. It was my decision option that exposed that reality.
Madam Chair, it was only raised by Commissioner Tuma's decision option that was filed on Tuesday.
Okay. So now you can file the plan, though,
Yes.
like today or tomorrow.
We could file it this week, yes.
And then Commissioner Ham's motion would essentially vary the rule that said that they didn't have to have the plan filed.
No, I think that my proposal is we are admitting that we didn't act within 60 days.
Commission
Yeah.
didn't determine that the overall site permit was complete before the operation. Sorry, I'm just not, I didn't know what, I'm not following that.
Yeah, applicant filed this compliance filing about a year ago. At the time of their filing, within 60 days, we should have act on that compliance. And then we didn't do it, so we have to vary the rule to effectuate that rule. Otherwise, I think we have some potential legal gap, so that's why I'm proposing to vary that rule to make sure that we are following our rule.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I think it's a good.
okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, one last, just so you understand, Mr. Ravel, my understanding is only $1,000 left in the actual permitting account. We'll probably burn through that. And so when we say that all the costs and reimbursements due, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about landowners and not what you owe the commission for the extra time that we're going to put in, just making sure that everything is done here. Is that your understanding?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Tuma, thank you, yes.
Madam Chair, I'm ready to make a motion when you are.
Apologies, Commissioners. Commissioner Hom, did you want the 2 variances or just 1 variance in your new 4?
Okay, so I was okay with the prior one because I was advised that I think under the statute we can override that one. So that's why I was okay one way or another. But I think this was original complete variance motion, so we can get by with not having another commission meeting. Under the rule, we are supposed to have another commission meeting. But I think we are going to skip that one under your motion, right?
That's right.
So the what's on the screen now is what's going to be in the motion.
That's my understanding.
Yep, I think this is the motion that.
Apologies for the confusion.
Is staff comfortable with this, Mr. Panay? And
Yes, Madam Chair.
okay,
Yes.
Okay, so Madam Chair, I move Tuma new 3 and Ham new 4.
is there any discussion of the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion prevails. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thanks to our staff. There's no other business before the commission today, so we are adjourned. Have a good day, everyone.